I was sitting on a train and it were rattling across North Wales. When we just left Prestatyn, this strange looking man got on carrying a large cardboard box. I were hoping he were not going to sit by me. I could see the look of relief on the faces of the people he'd already passed. I were looking out of the window to avoid catching his eye when the box was deposited on my table by a man I can only describe as having fallen out of an aeroplane and landed in a tree, which saved his life if not his dignity and outward appearance. Oh, his grunt on landing on the seat opposite me told a lot about him, more of which I did not feel inclined to ask. The scratching sound emanating from the box led to the easy assumption he were ferrying a pet somewhere. But by the time we'd reached Rhyl, he were visibly agitated, so I felt the need to speak. Though talking to strange men carrying dubious cardboard boxes is not an activity for which I were properly designed. "Kitten?" I ventured. "No, I found him on a roundabout." I was none the wiser and wishing he'd chosen a different victim. The couple behind me seemed nice. A large chap across the aisle seemed better equipped than me if self-defence became necessary. Then he opened the box just enough for me to see inside and shut it quick. Must have been that patch of daylight that made its occupant increasingly interested in making its escape. Allowing this to happen was not a very good idea, so I felt persuaded to help. He'd said he wanted to set it free but wasn't sure about doing it on his own. I mean, what are you supposed to do with a large herring gull with claustrophobia? We got off the train at Colwyn Bay, which according to the ticket he were clutching were convenient for him if not for me. When he opened the box, what looked at close quarters like an albatross leapt out and tried to take off. It got no further than the wall though and collapsed in an ungainly heap on the platform. I gathered up the stricken seabird, not before it did its best to peck my eye out, which were bad enough, but not as bad as seeing my train leaving the station. So now I not only had 2 unwanted companions, but I also had all the attendant worry of trying to get home. We decided to go down to the promenade to make another attempt at releasing the wild back into the wild, as it were. And when we opened the box, the bird just stood there and eyed us up and down with all the disdain it could muster. And then it hopped out and over to the edge of the promenade. Felt a gust of wind under its wing and wheeled up into the bright blue sky. My concern for its future was interrupted by a touch on my arm. "Well, that's that. You will stop by if you're ever passing the university, won't you? Ron Simpson's my name, zoology's my bag. Moscow, hope you get home safe." And he set off along the promenade. I watched him until he was out of sight and then headed back to the station. It were an odd experience. And not just because of the unexpected encounter with a prime specimen of Larus argentatus. I'd met a scruffy vagrant with a kitten in a box, but I parted company with a mildly eccentric academic. Well, there's a lesson in there somewhere.